yes. So please remember this. And the pessimist can never talk about good things. That's the problem with pessimism. And you may question why I am a pessimist. We'll deal with that if you think that you need to question me. So the question, the idea that we are going to discuss today is not going to make you feel good. Honestly. It is not going to make you feel good, and I am not here to make you feel good. If through this discussion or discourse that I am going to present today, if I can irritate you, if I can provoke you, if I can make you angry, my goodness, I think that I have achieved my purpose. That's what a pessimist is for. To paint a picture which is so bleak that the audience will feel miserable and hope that, come on, why did Nimesh sir call this fellow? But we had such wonderful image and positive dimensions within ourselves, and here is someone coming from the humanities and saying that, as Horatio says in Shakespeare's Hamlet, things are rotten in the state of Denmark. That is the statement that really unravels the whole tragedy of Hamlet. So, and I would love to hear your anger after I finish. I would love to hear how much of irritated you are. Or maybe some of us might think, oh, come on, no matter what, this man makes some sense of what he says. That also is acceptable to me. But I want your sincere reaction to what I say. So I'll begin with this scenario that if you ask me what is the most fundamental issue, that this present world is confronting, you may have your own answers, and then we'll question each other. I would say is the issue of survival. What it means to exist in this universe, and how do I survive in this universe? And I don't think, now again, this is something highly debatable, that's why I'll be making some statements which will be provocative so that it generates a sense of discussions among us or thought among us. If you look into the human history, civilization or anything, whether you talk about development or any issue, the most fundamental deep structure of any existence is, how do I survive? And I, as a humanities student, can never think of any other issue that has become so fundamental to human existence. Nothing can be more fundamental to human existence than the notion of survival. At this age, you may not reflect upon it. But a time comes when this becomes the most significant. Now, how do I say this? What is the basis? Because every statement that one makes has to be validated by certain facts or evidences. If you look at the present world, read the present world. Reading means observing. When I say read, I mean observe. If you read the present world, what I find is, I find the present world obsessed with this idea of survival. And where do they manifest that? Look at the television serials. It's all about survival. Whether you are attempting to survive from the zombies, whether you are attempting to survive from certain viruses, whether you are attempting to survive from other species encroaching upon our species. I love to watch movies. I don't know how many of you are movie lovers. recently, not recently, the movie was a year or a couple back, if you remember, there was a movie called Annihilation, if anyone has watched. Again, the whole issue is, how do we humans survive? So at the deep structural level, the moment any species, because you are development people, you are also involved in environmental issues and sustainable development. So we cannot only talk about human species. So any species that comes into this world, the fundamental principle is, how do I live till the time I leave this world? That's the fundamental. So that gets manifested in, if you look at it at the television serials, look at the number of books. What do you think at the deep structural level, books that come to us in the form of self-help, what does that mean? What is it trying to convey? Is it just trying to say, oh, you can achieve? No, at the deep structural level, there is a tremendous crisis, and that crisis can be millions of books are sold. One of the biggest market is the market of self-help. Whether you want to beat your depression, okay, go for yoga, go for meditation. Look at the number of books, look at the number of TV serials, and look at the movies, my goodness, the dystopian movies. Every movie is talking about the disaster. How many of us watched Avengers? Yes, what is it about? As a student of humanities, I'll say, my goodness, that's a movie which is trying or attempting, how can humanity and the world survive? Is there any other concern of the movie? I don't see anything else. So at one level, it seems as if survival has become the fundamental principle that drives any species. And it's not us that we are experiencing. Whether you talk about Darwin, that's the man who came up with this theory of selection and rejection and natural selection and the concept of survival of the fittest, which of course is attributed to, that concept is not attributed to Darwin but to Herbert Spencer, who coined this expression, but brilliantly he says, yes, it's all about survival. So the question is, this notion of survival has entered deep into our psyche, and it has become so pervasive that at times we miss it. Because something, when it becomes so obvious, what happens is you don't see it. When it becomes so obvious, you don't see it. There's a wonderful expression in visual culture, because I'll be jumping disciplines. I'll be talking about visual culture, I'll be talking about movies, I'll be talking about mythologies, I'll try to talk about development, which is your area, and there you can question me. The issue is all the time, what we are trying to do is, yes, how do I make sense? So it has become so pervasive. There's a saying in visual culture, it says, visual culture is everywhere, that's why it's nowhere. Because when something is everywhere, you don't see it. It becomes so obvious that we fail to acknowledge its presence. So where does in this concept of survival, where do we locate this notion of globalization or development? That is our concern. And how will our humanities students look into these issues and identify the problem? Your reading of development will be totally different from our reading of development. Totally different. And the good thing in academics is, if we are open to other vantage points. Vantage points means different locations. Again, let me bring in a movie. How many of us, I'm a movie lover. How many of us have watched the movie called Vantage Point? You'll be surprised that how a single object makes so much difference when we are looking from different vantage positions. Like this room is different from, it is a room, all of us are here, but my vantage point will have a different reading of this room. Your vantage point will have a different reading of the text is the same, but why do we have these differences? So that lens is, so we need to, as development students also, one of the advices that we give is to any disciplines. Even I'm a management student, I'm a humanities student, yet I like to see what the world of management is like. I like to see what the world of development is like. So where do we put this whole notion? And we have trivialized the concept of development. Honestly, if you ask me, we have trivialized the notion of globalization, the notion of development. The element of seriousness which is demanded on the part of the understanding of this concept of development or globalization is to a great extent absent. That is what I feel. But let's see what globalization and development are. I will say, my goodness, this whole notion of globalization and development has created havoc. You may disagree with that, and you have every right that it has more than assisting, because I said I am a pessimist, more than assisting, it has created turbulence over these. But I equally admit that there are two things that this development, notion of development and globalization has given to us. One, it has challenged us, it has created havoc, but equally it has provided opportunities to nations and individuals. I don't disagree with that. So I look into this notion of globalization or development as a humanities student from that particular lens, that it has created trouble, tremendous trouble, yet it has provided opportunities to, let us see what the world that we lived in. We are fortunate lot. Why, you know? Because we have seen the earlier world and we have seen this world. None of you, I think, were born before the 90s. The world, if you ask me, before the 90s was such a wonderful world. Why is it was a wonderful world? Because people and nations could confine themselves within a geographical location and feel happy. Because I didn't know anything. The luxury of ignorance. Wow. The luxury of ignorance is amazing, and the problem is you people are denied that luxury. You don't have the luxury of ignorance. Because at the click of the finger, you have all the information in front of you. So that's a tragedy, I would say. So the luxury of ignorance is, it's an amazing, blissful experience. When I don't know, when I don't see. So that is denied because globalization is a phenomena post-90s. It's not that people did not migrate, that people did not trade, there were trades and other things. But the intensity of relationships between and among the distant locations of the world is a post-90 phenomenon. We know what is happening in the Arctic. We know what is happening in the Antarctic. We know what is happening in the Cape of Horn. We know what is happening in Bermuda Triangle and everywhere. So that is something that has made. So how do I read the world? Today's world, I read it as hostile. I read it as pretty hostile. I read it as pretty brutal also. Now you can question me later on, but is always important. But I also see it as highly competitive and highly liberating. Where is the liberation? We are now liberated from the constraint of time. Things do not stop after sunset. Things, everything came to an end after the sunset. महाभारत को त्यत्रो लडाईँमा पनि के थियो, सूर्य उदयसी लडाईँ लडा, अस्त भएपछि that was the norm. So today's world has been liberated from the element of the constraint of time. Today's world has been liberated from the constraint of space. Post 90s, we were confined. Technology was not there. Transportation and communication was pretty limited. So that also has been taken care of. Equally taken care of, liberating is the choice. What do you want to eat? What kind of ice cream do you want to eat? Andes? Baskins Robbins, or Australia, or Dubai, or what more. So the choice also, at our time, the choice was not there. Eat it or leave it. Today, I can make choices. So one of the best things that I see, although being, as I said, a pessimist, is, my goodness, how much of liberation this generation has been able to experience. And mind you, this is not something, and there is where the visionaries come. And we'll talk about the visionaries later on. It was Karl Marx, almost 150, 60 years ago. I don't know whether you read Karl Marx or not. But you don't have to be a communist to read Karl Marx, mind you. You have to read Karl Marx because this fellow has a different vantage point, lens, to read a society. And such an anti-capitalist. Here is a man who says, what will happen in 150, 160 years later? That's a vision, that's a visionary. He says, and I quote, and he's not using the word globalization because the term has been coined most recently. What he's trying to see is the expansion of the market and the expansion of the capital. He says it means this whole notion of globalization, development concept, it must nestle everywhere. It must be everywhere. Settle everywhere. And establish connections everywhere. Don't you think that 150, 60 years ago, here is a man who would see what globalization would be like, or what the market economy would be like in 150, 60 years ago. So what we see is, what was he attempting to say then? That he was trying to predict an empire without ends. Today the world never ends, if you look at it. National geographies might end, but the world as such does not end. We are living in a world without horizons. So globalization, one of the things that I reflect upon again and again on this is that we are living in a world without, yes, but not everyone accepts it. Again, if survival is one of the fundamental principles of existence, one of the concepts that has been contested in contemporary times the most is the notion of globalization. And you have people shouting at one another from the two sides of the aisle. On one side you have people who say, come on, you are terrible. Whole notion, if you remember the whole notion of the 1%ers versus the 99ers. Heard of this concept? Where 1%ers, the concept is this, 1%ers versus the 99ers. Where 1% of the total population controls almost 80-90% of the human and natural resources. That's a big debate. And there are people who say, oh come on, you are whiners, you are just crying lot, who cannot do something and are jealous of what some people have achieved. You must have watched Hunger Games. Yes. That movie is all about, you can read it as 1%ers versus the. So it's one of the most contested concepts in contemporary times. If survival is one of the fundamental principles governing our existence, one of the most contested concepts which got hooked up with the issue of survival is globalization. And I don't know what you will say, but I will say that whole notion of development has been dictated and directed by the Western model. It is the West that determines and defines what constitutes development and what are the indicators or parameters of the concepts of development. And there are people like Vandana Shiva, if you have heard of this woman who is so fiery woman in the sense, an environmentalist, and she talks so much about sustainable development and other things. She says in one place that this has become an ideology of the West, the ideology of the West. And she says, and what is the nature of this ideology? The notion of development? Again, you are students of development, so think over it. He says that development ideology is all about the powerful imposing its will upon the poorer nations. That's how development she perceives. The ideology of development is how the powerful imposes its ideology upon the poor this thing. So what we have seen is never in the history of human civilization has market expansion and market deepening, doing vertical as well as horizontal, geographically and deep down it has penetrated into every nation, and that's the Western model. Let us debate. Why I say this is that we still do not have, and you can question me on that, we still do not have a credible Asian model of development. I don't know what you think about it. We still do not have a credible, I would use the word credible or alternative model of this thing, development. So, okay, what is the scenario? You are at the level of what is the model? Your psyche in you, and you can observe this on this thing. Pretty simple. We are more comfortable. We are more comfortable with Beyonce and Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift than with Indira Joshi. How many of us have heard this name?
Yeah.
Not all.
Or Bhima Kumari Dura.
So that is the point. Deep psyche is that we may not be consciously doing it. How many of us, we plug our ears, how many of us listen to Nepali songs? My goodness, you surprised me. And that's something to think over. Do you really listen to Nepali music?
Yeah, Nepali pop songs.
You are an exception. You are an exception, so maybe you'll have some pretty difficult questions for me. So, how do we address it? What do we do with this globalization? This monster? Means, I personally feel this is a monster which is so difficult to handle, to control. So the question that we can ask ourselves is, Do we bang our head and bleed? Or do we use our head and ride the monster to our desired direction? You cannot tame the monster, but you can tickle the monster. If you cannot tame, the best way is to tickle, make it happy, and achieve your desired goal. And that is what nations have done. And as I said right at the beginning, it has invited trouble, tremendous. It has totally destroyed nations, but it has built nations. Look at the examples of Southeast Asian nations. The moment they embraced this whole Western model of, question me, Western model of development, South Korea, which was poorer than Nepal 50 years back, is now one of the richest nations on earth. Look at Taiwan. Look at Singapore. Look at Cambodia and Vietnam. Totally destroyed nations. Now they are emerging as wonderful, powerful, nation. So the question that I ask myself, and it is for us to reflect upon, is where does Nepal stand in this whole discourse of development and in the discourse of globalization? Have we ever seriously given a thought that, my goodness, nations are flourishing and nations are destroyed by this globalization? Does Nepal have a sustained, this is my question to you, does Nepal have a sustained view of the notion of development and globalization? Now it is for you to answer. My answer is no. And my answer is equally pessimistic because I think Nepal is incapable. I'm questioning you people. Not only does it not have, not having is something else, but being incapable of even reflecting upon the notion of globalization. That is what I think. So I am questioning your discipline. I'm saying what you are studying will make no sense to the nation. Mind you, this is a big accusation, and I hope you will question me on that. Now, why do I say this? Because I am a student of the humanities. That is one thing. Because I am a student of mythology, I want to connect this with this lens of mine, why I think Nepal is incapable of even reflecting upon the notion of development. What makes me think so? And why am I so pessimist about my own country? Because the answer is pretty simple. Because I'm a student of mythology, because I'm a student of stories, because I'm a student who believes in heroes, because I'm a student who believes in leaders, because I believe in the intrinsic worth of the human value, which I find missing. Why do I say this? Let me give you some concrete examples which you know that. And as I said, why I think so? I take it from Hamlet's line that things are rotten in the state of Denmark. And I say things are rotten in the state of Nepal. Why? We all know Kulman Gising. See, we all know. What if I question that man? Don't be angry. I say this, that Nepal is rotten, because when I see people celebrating Kulman Gising, it might surprise you. And the question that I ask myself and to you is, do we really need to celebrate Kulman Gising and transform him into a hero of mythic dimension? We even heard